Our goal is to explore how social issues have evolved through generations and what potential issues we'll face in future generations.
Here's what we found. For our first topic, we focused on the death penalty. The death penalty, or capital punishment, is defined as a punishment carried out by the state which involves executing an individual due to the severity of their crime.
According to a survey done by the Pew Research Center, Generation X is most highly in favor of the death penalty, whereas millennials strongly oppose it. How does this change in overall opinion occur so quickly between generations? What do you feel the overall opinion on the death penalty is for your generation?
I would have to say that my generation would want the death penalty for crimes that were very serious.
I feel like my generation's overall opinion on the death penalty would be that they don't approve of it and they rather see people suffer in prison.
Overall, for my generation, I think that the death penalty is perceived negatively, but I think the reasoning behind that is different. So on one hand, you have people that think that it's too harsh of a punishment and that they deserve a second chance. But on the other hand, you have people that think that it's kind of a way out of facing the consequences of their actions.
Well, I can't speak for my whole generation. I can only speak for myself because, of course, I only relate to the people in my group. I don't go beyond. So kind of my general feeling. I truly believe that people don't give life much value. I think there are ones who really believe highly in it. I don't believe in it. I think it has to be a pretty severe thing to make the decision to take one's life. That's not my decision.
What do you think has influenced this opinion?
Probably the neighborhood I grew up in and the crime that I've witnessed and things I've seen on the news.
And what do you think has influenced this opinion for you or for your generation?
I think our generation, the baby boomers, value life much more than generations that follow. Our generations that have followed us are much more like a throwaway society. They don't place value on human life. They place more value on things.
Our second topic was the LGBT community. LGBT issues seem to become more and more prevalent each year, from the legalization of gay marriage in select states to hate crimes against LGBT individuals.
In another study conducted by the Pew Research Center, individuals from each generation were asked to name the top 10 historic events that occurred in their lifetime that they believe had the greatest impact on the country. Surprisingly, gay marriage made the top 10 list for only millennials and Generation X, even though the silent generation most strongly opposes gay marriage. Why is this? What do you feel the overall opinion on the LGBT community / LGBT issues is for your generation?
I think that a lot of them don't understand it. They're like, as we've heard some say, what's that? So they don't know it and they don't identify each of those groups or understanding what those groups are all about. So I think there's a lot of confusion. I think probably the knowledge they have, they're very biased towards that group and they find it very bad, negative. For myself, I mean, they're people first, and that other shouldn't really matter to anyone else if they keep it to themselves. But those groups often want to display it and want to show it, so therefore they put themselves out there to be judged.
I think the overall opinion as a millennial for LGBT community is that everyone should be treated equally. I don't think they have many issues because it's acceptable.
I think if I go back 20 years, most people would disagree with anything that gays and lesbians said, but I think their opinion has changed, and I really think that opinion has changed based on people coming out more and what I've seen on the news.
Overall, for my generation, I think that we're a lot more accepting and supportive of people in the LGBT community because we've seen firsthand the effects of people that have faced discrimination within that community, and I think we're trying to do everything we can to change that.
We were curious as to how growing up transgender today would differ to someone who went through the same thing many years ago. We were able to find such a study done by the Center for LGBT Health, where they had hypothesized that due to a greater visibility and acceptance of gender diversity in the United States, internalized trans negativity would be lower in a younger group compared to the older group. and that the younger generation would therefore report lower levels of psychological stress than the older generation.
This was exactly what we had predicted, being we ourselves have experienced all the measures school systems now go through to ensure everyone feels safe and included, especially those who may identify in a unique way. Shockingly, the study found the exact opposite to be true. Do you think it would be easier and there would be less psychological stress for someone who is transgender and part of an older generation, or for someone who is transgender today / part of a younger generation?
Definitely somebody today that's part of a younger generation.
I think it'd be much easier to come out as transgender if you were a part of the younger generation, just because of the fact that we are kind of taught to accept people that are different from us, and older generations are unfamiliar or haven't been as exposed to people that are transgender as we are. So it's a lot easier to come out as different than other people when those people around you are accepting of you.
I think there's stress in both. I think kids who decide that when they're young and they feel that way, they go through that stress of they're a younger person and they're not, should be guided by their parents and their family, and they're fighting that and their family want them to be one way. And then when you're older, you've been this way the whole time, and then everyone's questioning, why are you changing? Why are you going to be someone different? That's not the way you were nurtured. That's not the way you were taught through your life, things like that. So I think probably both ends of the spectrum.
Well, an actual study was conducted and found that people growing up transgender in an older generation actually experience less psychological stress, depression, and negativity compared to people growing up transgender today, despite greater visibility of transgender people and increasing acceptance. Does this surprise you?
Not necessarily. I think the older you get, the less you care about others and what they think of you. So, yeah.
Does this surprise you?
No, it doesn't. No, I would say probably that's probably a pretty accurate study. I think kids growing up today, there's just a different level of expectation. There's a whole lot more out there to make of yourself, and I think that causes more when you throw more factors into the pile, where someone who's transgender from my generation, they probably were quiet about it, didn't really put it out there, and just either tried to fight their way through it, or when they finally decided to change themselves, they weren't so out there about it.
Next, we looked at technology in young children. While all generations seem to agree that the tech revolution was one of the most impactful events of American history, it often seems that older generations are opposed to the use of today's technology because they aren't familiar with it, or they are afraid that too much screen time will rot your brain.
The technology used today by young children, like iPads, will definitely benefit them later in life when they enter the workforce and easily learn new programs. But it also provokes the question, how is all this screen time now affecting their social interaction?
What do you feel the overall opinion on technology use and its effect on social interaction is for your generation?
I think that older generations tend to think that technology is ruining younger generations, but within ourselves, I think we view it as a tool and an asset to help us connect with other people and to connect to the world around us.
It really goes to show kids who spend time with technology or screens or more with devices than they would do with people. They don't have the ability, they don't know how to interact. Go to a restaurant and you see kids in high school, young adults, and no one's speaking to each other. They're looking at a device instead. So that really isn't a skill to interact with a machine. The kids that I know had devices since they were little, depending on how much they use it and stuff, but I definitely will tell you that I think kids who don't have social interactions and they use that as their mechanism of daily life, I think it will hinder. I don't think you can really say, well, if you use a device, you'll never be a social person. I don't think that's true, but I think it does hinder them. I mean, I feel like they spend more time with machinery versus people, and what are we here for? I mean, we're here to interact with others.
I think that millennials know technology very well, but older generations think that we don't know how to communicate properly or pick up the phone and call somebody. So it's declining our social interaction.
I think video games should go to the wayside. Facebook and things are okay for communicating with relatives and friends and things like that. Other technology, it's growing every day. I think it's good, but it can be abused very easily.
What's your favorite thing about technology?
I've been thinking, I want you to be happier. I want you to be happier. Even though I might not.
My favorite thing about technology is probably cell phone. We didn't have that option. We couldn't communicate, we couldn't text. It is nice to be able to send something to somebody and nobody else hearing it. That is pretty cool.
Finally, we asked about what faces future generations. We have observed so far that a generation's overall opinion on a certain issue is shaped largely by experiences or historical events that influences opinions on what should be legal or appropriate.
Just in the time frame of less than 100 years that we have been exploring, there has been huge changes in developments and new social issues that would have been unheard of 20 years ago. Now, this begs the question, what issues will future generations such as Generation Alpha, which is right after Gen Z, face?
What do you think that younger generations will have to deal with in the future?
I think that younger generations will deal with lack of human interaction, and by that I mean like when you call customer service somewhere and you don't talk to a human being, you talk to a robot or an automated system, that they're gonna lack social skills.
Right now, you have all this happening and it'll die off and things will come back. Technology, things that are in our lives and things like improve and supposedly make our life better. But those things, I think, as you say, Facebook faded away, you know, then it's gonna come back, it may be in a different format and stuff, but I think there's totally a cycle.
What new issues do you think will arise from upcoming generations, including Generation Alpha?
I definitely think that they will lack face-to-face contact and not really know how to approach problems with people because they solve everything through their phones, and I mean, I myself do that too. But I think also they're gonna lack work ethic because things are just gonna be done for them. You're gonna have self-driving cars and you're gonna have hotlines with automated calls and things like that just hinder human relationships.
Do you think any current social issues will fade away or have radical change in opinion in the future?
I definitely think that like the progressive values that we see today, like with the Women's March and with other progressive movements, will either become completely, like I don't want to say obliterated, but like they'll go away or they'll be the new norm. So I think that's going to be something that is going to be interesting to follow in the future. So we'll have to wait and see.
Put a magnifying glass to my life, believe me, you will find some shit your eyes shouldn't see. Ears on here, let's be clear, we all shady. Day by day, we fight the good fight, maybe once in a while we find the strength to be okay and find some patience for ourselves. Don't be so hard up on yourself. Show some love to yourself. Live a life You know, we're just working on it. No later bargain.
Overall, we found that opinions on social issues depended more on the individual and less on the generation as a whole. Each person within a generation has a different opinion that is shaped by their personal experiences.
Therefore, it's very difficult to assign a singular opinion on an issue to an entire generation. This goes to show that as time moves on, everyone will continue to encounter new obstacles in life, and having an open mind is the best way to approach these issues and be successful at the same time.